Hello, everyone. Welcome to the class.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Professor Qiu.
In last chapter, we discussed the process of discovering beauty. This chapter, we will begin to discuss the Western aesthetic thought and aesthetic education thought.
As concept, aesthetic education does not exist for a long time, but the aesthetic education thoughts has a long history. Horatius, the ancient Roman poet, clearly puts forward the famous aesthetic education principle of education through entertainment. The poet's wish should be to give people benefits and fun, and what he wrote should give people pleasure and help life at the same time. Education through entertainment is to persuade the reader and make him happy, so as to meet the expectations of the masses.
Since ancient Greece, human beings have never given up the pursuit of beauty, but the standards for measuring art seem to be changing all the time. The ancient Egyptian civilization eventually gradually died out, but the ancient Greek civilization on the other side of the Mediterranean Sea rose slowly like the rising sun, emitting dazzling brilliance, and became one of the sources of the development of Western civilization.
Ancient Greek philosophers have long attached importance to the important law of aesthetic education. It has been said that the ancient Greek culture was so great because they developed an equation of beauty. To this day, whenever people talk about beauty, there is inevitably a direct trace back to this era.
Take Venus, for example. Whether it the Venus of Milo, the Venus of Willendorf, or the Venus of Urbino, especially the world-famous Venus from the Venus of Milo, which has long been regarded as the most beautiful symbol in the world.
Venus, the goddess of love, has a dignified and beautiful figure with plump skin, beautiful oval face, straight Greek nose, flat forehead, and full chin. Her calm face revealing the ideological tradition inherited from the heyday of Greek sculpture art. Her slightly twisted posture makes her half-naked body form a very harmonious and beautiful spiraling upward posture, full of musical rhythm and great artistic charm.
For a variety of reasons, the statue is incomplete, but its beauty is not diminished by its imperfection, allowing us to concentrate more intently on the balanced curves of her body. Taking the navel as the dividing line, the ratio between the top and the bottom of Venus' body is about 0.618 to 1. The ratio between her head and body is 1 to 8, which is the perfect golden ratio from all angles. It is also known as the nine-headed body.
The ancient Greeks, who sculpted according to this scale, were the first to set these numbers to help people understand beauty and ugliness. This is a huge step forward in human cognition. Yuval Harari, the author of A Brief History of Humanity, argues that the cognitive revolution was the beginning of the separation of history from biology. It is because of the cognitive revolution that the norms of these constraints set people apart from other creatures.
Pythagoras and his school put forward the idea that music purifies the soul. This can be said to be the earliest Western aesthetic education thought. In the 6th century BC, Pythagoras' school, starting from the aesthetic concept of harmony between beauty and number and the religious idea of immortal soul, believed that music was a kind of harmony, and the human soul was also a kind of harmony.
In Greece, cosmos means harmony, quantity, and order. Pythagoras took number as the principle of the universe. When he found that the height of the sound and the length of the string were in a neat proportion, he felt that the secret of the universe had been revealed to him. On the one hand, it was the permanent law of number. On the other hand, it was the most beautiful and harmonious music.
Although Pythagoras was unable to establish a real moral theory because he reduced morality to a number and spoke of morality in an incorrect way, he was, after all, the first one to try to explain morality and combine it with beauty. He put forward that virtue is a kind of harmony, and the Athenian educational practice with aesthetic education laid the foundation for the development of aesthetic education thought.
There are two types of ancient Greek education. Spartan education is famous for its strictness and barbarism in the history of Western education. It advocates martial arts and attaches importance to military education, but also attaches importance to music education, and uses music to boost morale and cultivate the organizational discipline of soldiers.
On the contrary to Sparta, Athens advocated civil governance, which was related to its developed economy and political democracy. It required students not only to become strong soldiers, but also to become statesmen and businessmen with a variety of abilities and cultural accomplishments and good at business communication. Therefore, Athenian education emphasizes the all-round development of physical, intellectual, aesthetic, and moral, which is a colorful and individualistic education. On this basis, many ancient Greek thinkers made a preliminary theoretical summary.
For example, Plato proposed in the Republic that the education system should include the education of the body and the education of the soul, art education. He analyzed the process of people from physical beauty to spiritual beauty, behavior beauty, system beauty, and knowledge beauty, and finally to the world of ideas by observing oneself. He noted that the beauty of nature and art can cultivate people's temperament and beautify people's hearts, and emphasized the habit of cultivating young people to love beauty.
Aristotle, another ancient Greek thinker, advocated harmonious education, including reading and writing, physical exercise, music and painting, as well as the cultivation of moral character, and put the emphasis on aesthetic education, mainly music education. In the Politics of Aristotle, Aristotle said music should be studied not only for a certain purpose, but also for several purposes at the same time. That is education, purification and spiritual enjoyment, quiet and rest after intense labor.
In the Middle Ages of Europe, because of the feudal theocracy and asceticism, all kinds of flowers in the field of aesthetics withered, and aesthetic education was extremely desolate. It was not until the Renaissance that art flourished. The masterpieces of Dante, Boccaccio, Leonardo da Vinci, and Shakespeare played an important role in aesthetic education at that time.
For the end of the 18th century to the beginning of the 19th century, German classical aesthetics comprehensively summarized the historical experience of aesthetics in the past, and comprehensively introduced dialectics and historical view into practice. On this basis, the German classical aesthetics represented by Kant, Schiller, Schelling, Goethe, and so on summarized the achievements of aesthetics at that time and established the German classical aesthetic system.
At the same time, British empiricism aesthetics, German rationalism aesthetics, and French Enlightenment aesthetics all appeared at the same time in the 18th century, which was a period of high prosperity and development of Western aesthetic thoughts. Later, Goethe and Schiller's aesthetics made aesthetics objective and realistic. German classical aesthetics, represented by them, has become a mature stage in the development of Western aesthetics.
The word aesthetic education was first formally put forward by Schiller, a German Romantic poet and aesthetician, between 1793 and 1794, in order to repay the Prince of Denmark, Augustenborg, the Duke of Christian, to his life support. Schiller has written 27 letters about aesthetic education. They were later put together as aesthetic education letters. It became the first aesthetic education manifesto in the West.
The basic problem that aesthetic education letters discussed how to solve the problem of human nature division caused by capitalism to human integrity and freedom, and how to reform the country from the integrity of human nature to achieve political freedom. He said, if we want to change the sensible man into the rational man, the only way is to make him become the aesthetic man first.
Kant is the founder of German idealist philosophy and German idealist aestheticism at the end of the 18th century and the beginning of the 19th century. Kant's aesthetics was developed and established in the debate with previous rationalism aesthetics and British empiricism aesthetics, so it is an extremely complex and contradictory system. His philosophy has obvious duality. To a certain extent, he tried to reconcile materialism and idealism.
In his aesthetic works, Kant only mentioned Baumgarten of Germany and Aberg of England, two the aestheticians before him. One is the successor of German rationalism. The other is the psychoanalytic thinker of British empiricism. Baumgarten was disciple of Wolff, but Wolff didn't give foreplay to aesthetics. While Leibniz, who he inherited, had some important aesthetic views, which formed the foundation of German rationalism aesthetics.
Leibniz inherited and developed the world outlook of Descartes. Spinoza and others in the 17th century, he tried to unify the understanding of the world with a religious mathematical system so as to achieve a clear and complete understanding of the physical world.
However, this intuitive and ambiguous perceptual knowledge still reflects the harmony and order of the world. When this kind of knowledge reaches a perfect state, that is, when it perfectly reflects the harmony and order of the world, it is not only a kind of truth, but also a kind of beauty. So, the science of perceptual knowledge became aesthetics at the same time.
The word aesthetic, which is now called aesthetics, used to be about the science of perceptual knowledge. Baumgarten Legerger's successor, not only gathered all the research in this field at that time, made it a new science systematically for the first time, but also named it aesthetic. Later, people used this name to develop this new science, aesthetics.
On the basis of Leicester's philosophy and the influence of empiricism, aesthetics, emotionalism, Baumgarten created an aesthetic system with the impression of eclecticism. Baumgarten thinks that the perfection of perceptual knowledge is beauty. He thinks, 1. Feeling is originally a warm and hazy concept, so feeling is a low-level form of cognition. 2. Perfection is nothing more than unity in diversity, harmony and perfection between part and whole. Single sense cannot constitute harmony, so the essence of beauty is in its form. 3. Beauty is established only by the concept of feeling unknown. Then, when a clear theoretical knowledge comes into being, it can replace beauty and eliminate it. 4. Beauty is accomplished by desire. Beauty itself is perfection, that is, good. Good is the object of people's desire.
This is Baumgarten's important contribution to the history of aesthetics. Although his own aesthetic works are still very superficial, the scale is beginning to take shape, and the content is poor. He himself has no knowledge of plastic arts and musical arts, and only talks about beauty according to oratory and poetics. He went from rationalism to aesthetics and established the science of aesthetics. Beauty is truth, although it is only a vague truth. So, aesthetics is included in the door of scientific theism and fills a loophole and defect of rationalism, philosophicism, that is, logic in the perceptual world.
Next chapter, we are going to talk about traditional Chinese aesthetics thought and aesthetic education. That's all for today. Thanks for watching.
See you next time.